The morning started like any other in the Galactic Council building. The massive crystal dome stretched high above the main hall, where representatives from dozens of worlds gathered to discuss trade, territory, and the daily business of running a galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Carter walked through the polished corridors with her usual calm pace, her simple black uniform standing out among the colorful robes and strange body coverings of the alien delegates. Lisa had been Earth's voice in the Council for 12 years. She had seen the looks, heard the whispers, and felt the cold dismissal that came whenever she spoke. The other species treated humans like useful pets at best or annoying insects at worst. They smiled politely when she talked about human ideas, then ignored everything she said the moment she left the room. Today would be different. Today would be the last time she walked these halls. The reptilian Vorthic representative counselor X-Run barely looked up when Lisa entered the debate chamber. His scaled hands were busy with a datapad reviewing the morning's agenda. Trade routes through the Outer Rim, mining rights in the asteroid fields, and a proposal for new shipping regulations. All topics that affected human colonies and all topics that would be decided without any real human input. Lisa took her seat at the small table, marked with Earth's symbol. Around her, the chamber filled with beings of every shape and size. The Nexari delegation sparkled like living jewels, their crystalline bodies catching the light as they moved. The ethereal collective floated in their containment suits, their gaseous forms shifting and swirling like colored smoke. The Krathan warriors sat rigid in their battle armor, even here in the peaceful halls of government. All of them had one thing in common. They looked at humans as if they were children playing at adult games. "The session will now begin," announced the speaker, a tall Vorthak whose voice echoed through the chamber. "First item, trade route expansion in Sector 7. Lisa listened. As the debate unfolded, the Nexari wanted exclusive rights to 3 major shipping lanes. The Vorthak demanded military escorts for their merchant vessels. The Ethereals proposed complex taxation systems that would benefit their gas refineries. Human colonies in Sector 7 were mentioned only once as existing settlements that would need to be relocated. No one asked Lisa what humans thought about being moved from their homes. No one cared that human farmers had spent 20 years turning dead worlds into gardens. No one wondered if humans might have ideas about how to make the trade routes work better. This was how it always went. Humans did the hard work, solved the problems, and kept the peace between species that could barely stand to be in the same room. Then the council made decisions about human lives without including humans in the conversation. Lisa had tried everything over the years. She had been polite, patient, and professional. She had presented detailed reports, offered helpful suggestions, and proven again and again that humans could contribute to galactic society. Nothing worked. The other species had made up their minds about humanity, and nothing would change that. But humans were good at adapting. They were good at finding new solutions when old ones stopped working. And they were very good at knowing when it was time to walk away. "I request permission to address the council," Lisa said, standing up from her chair. The speaker looked annoyed. "Ambassador Carter, the floor is currently held by Councillor Zeftel of the Nexari Consortium." "Thank you, Speaker. I'll be brief." The chamber fell quiet. Lisa could feel hundreds of eyes turning toward her, most of them showing the same mixture of boredom and mild irritation they always showed when she spoke. "Effective immediately," Lisa said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council." The silence stretched for several long seconds. Then nervous laughter began to ripple through the alien delegates. Councilor X-Run actually smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Ambassador Carter," the speaker said, "surely you don't have the authority to make such a decision without consulting your government." Lisa reached into her jacket and pulled out a datapad. "I have here the signed authorization from the President of Earth, the Colonial Assembly, and the Fleet Command. All human worlds have voted to leave the Council." The vote was unanimous. The laughter stopped. Councillor Zeftal's crystalline body flashed with bright colors, a sign of agitation among her people. "This is highly irregular," she said, her voice ringing like music. You cannot simply leave the council. There are procedures, requirements, treaties to consider. All treaties have been reviewed, Lisa replied. We are in full compliance with galactic law. Humanity thanks the Council for the experience and wishes you success in your future endeavors. Lisa walked to the center of the chamber and placed her data pad on the speaker's podium. Our final reports and transition documents are all included. Human colonies will be evacuated within 60 days. All Council property will be returned in good condition. All debts will be settled before departure. The speaker's scaled face showed confusion. But why? What has prompted this sudden decision? Lisa looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings she had worked with for over a decade. There is no anger here, no complaints or demands. Humanity has simply decided to pursue other opportunities. Other opportunities? Counselor Thexren leaned forward. What other opportunities? Humans have no allies outside the Council. No trade partners, no advanced technology, no military protection. You need us. Perhaps, Lisa said with a slight smile. I suppose we'll find out. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, one more thing. Dr. Amy Rodriguez has prepared detailed instructions for maintaining all human-designed systems. The technical manuals are in the transition documents. She recommends following them exactly. With that, Lisa Carter walked out of the Galactic Council chamber for the last time. Behind her, the delegates erupted into confused chatter. Some were angry about the sudden departure. Others were pleased to be rid of the troublesome humans. Most were simply puzzled by the whole thing. None of them realized what had just happened. None of them understood that the quiet, polite woman who had just left the chamber had delivered the opening move in a game they didn't even know they were playing. Across the galaxy, human colonies were already packing up. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the transport ship Freedom's Call, watching the last shuttles lift off from the mining station on Kepler 442b. The station had been running for 15 years, pulling rare metals from the asteroid belt and shipping them to Vorthik Industrial Worlds. Now it was empty, its human crew heading home to Earth or to destinations unknown. All personnel accounted for, Captain, his first officer reported. The station's automated systems are still running, but they'll need maintenance within 6 months. Jake nodded. That's not our problem anymore. Take us out of orbit. As the Freedom's Call pulled away from the station, Jake could see other ships in the distance. Human vessels leaving mining operations, research stations, and colonial outposts. Throughout the system, the evacuation was happening simultaneously across 17 star systems, coordinated with the precision that humans were known for. Dr. Amy Rodriguez finished wiping the last of her research files from the laboratory computer. 40 years of work, gone in a few keystrokes. Terraforming techniques that could turn dead worlds into paradises. Medical advances that could cure diseases affecting 6 different species. Engineering solutions that made impossible construction. Projects routine. All of it deleted, leaving only the basic operational manuals that would keep existing systems running for a while. Are you sure about this? Her assistant asked. All that research, all those discoveries. Amy smiled as she packed her personal belongings into a small bag. Don't worry. I have copies of everything, just not copies that are staying here. She looked around the laboratory one last time, remembering the excitement of discovery, the satisfaction of solving problems that had stumped alien scientists for decades. The Council had never understood that humans didn't just follow instructions. They improved things, made them better, found new ways to make the impossible possible. Soon they would find out what that was worth. Amy picked up her bag and walked toward the door. On her desk, she left a small note. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. The systems are yours now. Good luck. Then she was gone, leaving behind empty rooms and the quiet hum of machines that would soon need human hands to keep them working. 3 months had passed since the humans left, and Trade Commissioner Zektar was starting to worry. He stood in his office high above the capital city of Vorthak Prime, staring at production reports that made no sense. The numbers should have been going up, not down. With humans gone, there were more opportunities for other species, more jobs available, more resources to share. Instead, everything was falling apart. The mining operation in the Kepler system was the worst example. Human crews had pulled rare metals from those asteroids for 15 years, working with machines that seemed simple enough. Big drills, sorting equipment, transport containers. Nothing too complicated. The Vorthak workers who replaced them were experienced miners with decades of training, but somehow, production had dropped to 40% of normal levels. Zektar's assistant, a young Vorthak named Krekstal, entered the office carrying another stack of reports. His scales were dark with stress, a sign that he was bringing bad news. "Sir, we have the latest numbers from Kepler Station," Krekstal said, setting the reports on the desk. "Output is down again this week. The new crew chief says the equipment keeps breaking down." "Breaking down how?" Zektar asked, though he was starting to suspect the answer. "The sorting machines aren't working right. They keep jamming up, or they sort the wrong materials into the wrong containers. The drill heads are burning out faster than they should. And the transport system has stopped working completely." Zektar picked up one of the reports and studied it. The human who had run Kepler Station was a man named Pete Collins. His crew had consisted of 32 humans who handled everything from equipment maintenance to quality control. They had worked 12-hour shifts and never complained about the dangerous conditions or the isolation. More importantly, they had never filed reports about equipment failures. "What do the technical manuals say?" Zektar asked. "That's the problem, sir. We're following them exactly, but something isn't working. The manuals tell us how to operate the machines, but they don't explain what to do when things go wrong. And things keep going wrong." Across the galaxy, Ambassador Silaneth of the Nexari Consortium was dealing with her own crisis. The crystalline being stood in the center of her government's main conference chamber, surrounded by worried advisors whose bodies flickered with colors of distress. "Explain to me again how we lost an entire production line," she said, her musical voice sharp with frustration. Her chief engineer, a Nexari named Kelthes, stepped forward. His crystal body was dark blue, the color of deep embarrassment. The manufacturing plant on Nexari 7 was designed around human workers. The control systems, the assembly procedures, even the spacing between workstations. When we tried to adapt it for our people, everything fell apart. "But surely our engineers are capable of making simple modifications?" "That's what we thought," Kelthes replied. "But the humans had integrated their systems in ways we didn't understand. Every change we make causes problems somewhere else. When we adjusted the assembly line height for our workers, the quality control scanners stopped working properly. When we fixed the scanners, the packaging system began malfunctioning." Silaneth's body flashed bright yellow, a sign of growing anger. "Are you telling me that humans, with their primitive technology, created systems too complex for Nexari engineers to understand?" "Not too complex," Kelthes said carefully. "Just ... different. They didn't build the systems the way we would have built them. Their approach was more flexible, more adaptable. Our methods are precise and efficient, but they require everything to work exactly as designed." The human systems seemed designed to work even when things went wrong. The problems weren't limited to industry. On the diplomatic station orbiting Neutral Zone Gamma, Ethereal Counselor Vexful was discovering just how much humans had contributed to galactic peace. The Krathan Dominion and the Sectar Republic had been enemies for 3 centuries. Their hatred ran so deep that they couldn't be in the same room without starting a fight. For the past 50 years, they had managed to coexist only because human diplomats had served as mediators in their disputes. Humans had a strange talent for understanding both sides of an argument, even when the two sides seemed completely unreasonable. They could listen to a Krathan warrior's demands for honor-based combat and a Sectar merchant's requests for profit-sharing agreements, then somehow find a solution that satisfied both parties. Now those human mediators were gone, and old hatreds were surfacing again. "The Krathan delegation is refusing to attend tomorrow's trade negotiations," Vexthal S. aide reported. They say the sector representatives insulted their ancestors during yesterday's preliminary discussions. What did the sector actually say? Vexthal asked. They offered a standard greeting in their own language. The Krathan translator interpreted it as a death threat. Vexthal sighed, a sound like wind through crystalline caves. This was exactly the sort of misunderstanding that humans had prevented. Somehow, they had learned to speak not just the languages of different species, but their cultural languages as well. They understood when a Krathan was being polite versus when he was preparing for battle. They knew the difference between a sectar business proposal and a sectar insult. Without humans to translate not just words but meanings, every conversation was becoming a potential conflict. The military situation was even worse. Commander Rick Hayes had been in charge of the early warning system that protected Council space from pirates and raiders. His network of sensors and patrol ships had kept the trade routes safe for decades. The system was still running, but it wasn't running well. Admiral Nexvar of the Vorthic Defense Fleet studied the latest patrol reports with growing concern. Pirate attacks had increased by 60% in just 3 months. The raiders were hitting targets that should have been protected, striking at times when patrols should have been present. How are they getting past our sensors? He demanded. His intelligence officer, a veteran named Thralek, shook his head. They're not getting past the sensors, sir. The sensors are detecting them, but our response times have doubled since the humans left. Doubled? How is that possible? The human patrol commanders had a different approach to border security, Thralek explained. They didn't just react to threats, they anticipated them. They would position their ships based on pirate behavior patterns, trade route schedules, even things like asteroid movements and solar activity. When an attack happened, they were already in position to respond. Admiral Nexvar studied the tactical display showing current patrol positions. His ships were spread evenly throughout the sector, maintaining standard coverage patterns that had been used by the Vorthek military for centuries. It was a logical, efficient system that should have been superior to whatever crude methods the humans had used. What are our patrol commanders doing differently? They're following standard military doctrine, Thralek replied. Fixed patrol routes, regular schedules, proper formation flying, everything by the book. And the humans? The humans never followed any book we could find. Each patrol commander seemed to make up his own rules based on local conditions. It looked chaotic and undisciplined, but somehow it worked better than our system. The pattern was the same everywhere. Human methods had looked simple, even primitive, to alien observers. But when other species tried to replace those methods with their own superior approaches, everything stopped working properly. On the industrial world of Vorthek 7, factory supervisor Kexenol was learning this lesson the hard way. The automated assembly line that produced communication equipment had been designed by human engineers 5 years ago. It was supposed to be foolproof, capable of running with minimal supervision, but it only worked when humans were supervising it. The quality control systems are rejecting 70% of our output, Kexenol's chief technician reported. The components are being manufactured to exact specifications, but the scanners keep finding defects that don't exist. Kexenol examined one of the rejected components. It looked perfect to his eyes, meeting all the technical requirements. But the human-designed scanner had marked it as defective and sent it to the recycling bin. Have you checked the scanner calibration? Every day, sir. It's calibrated exactly according to the manual, but the human technician who used to work here, a woman named Carol Murphy, had her own calibration settings that she never wrote down. She just knew how to make the system work. This was the problem that was showing up everywhere. Humans had left behind detailed manuals and instruction guides for all their equipment and systems, but the manuals only covered normal operations. They didn't explain what to do when things went wrong, how to handle unusual situations, or how to make judgment calls when the rules didn't apply. Humans had possessed something that couldn't be written down in a manual, the ability to adapt, to solve problems on the fly, to make systems work even when they shouldn't, and now they were gone. Taking that ability with them, the council members who had celebrated, Humanity's departure were starting to realize that maybe they had made a mistake, but it was still early. Surely they could figure out how to replace whatever small contributions humans had made to galactic society. After all, how hard could it be? 6 months after the humans left, Emergency Coordinator Tessara of the Ethereal Collective was running out of solutions. Her gaseous form swirled with dark colors as she floated above the conference table, studying reports from across the galaxy. Every attempt to replace human workers had failed. Every effort to improve on human methods had made things worse. The latest disaster had happened on the mining world of Zarian Prime. The collective had hired experienced Krathan warriors to take over the mining operation that humans had abandoned. Krathan were known for their strength and determination. They were perfect for dangerous work in hostile environments. The problem was that Krathan solved every problem with force. "The mining equipment has been completely destroyed," reported her aide, a younger ethereal named Zixmal. The Krathan crew attempted to increase production by removing what they called unnecessary safety protocols. The resulting explosion took out 3 mining platforms and a processing station. Tessara's form flashed with orange irritation. Did they follow any of the operational guidelines? They followed them exactly, Coordinator. The guidelines said the safety protocols could be adjusted for optimal efficiency. The humans who wrote the guidelines apparently understood that this meant small, careful adjustments. The Krathan interpreted it as permission to remove all safety measures. This was the pattern everywhere. The technical manuals that humans had left behind were complete and accurate, but they assumed a level of judgment and common sense that other species apparently didn't possess. Humans had written instructions for other humans, not for aliens who thought completely differently. On the trade station orbiting Nexus 4, Station Commander Veltara was dealing with her own crisis. The station had been designed as a neutral meeting place where different species could conduct business safely. For 20 years, human administrators had kept the peace between traders who spoke different languages, followed different customs, and often hated each other. Now those human administrators were gone, replaced by a carefully selected team of diplomats from various council species. Each diplomat was an expert in interspecies relations, trained in multiple languages and cultural practices. They should have been able to handle anything. Instead, the station was falling apart. "We have another incident in Docking Bay 7, reported Security Chief Krondar, a massive Vorthak whose scales were scarred from years of peacekeeping duty. A Nexari trade delegation is refusing to leave their ship because they say the sector merchants in the adjacent bay are broadcasting death threats." "Are they actually broadcasting death threats?" Veltara asked. "No, Commander, they're playing traditional sector music. Apparently, one of the songs contains lyrics about victory in battle, which the Nexari translator interpreted as threats of violence." Veltara rubbed her temples, a gesture she had learned from watching human administrators deal with stress. What would the humans have done? According to the records, they would have explained to both sides that the music was cultural expression, not a threat. Then they would have arranged for the sector to use headphones and offered the Nexari a tour of the station's cultural center to help them understand sector customs. Then do that. "We tried, Commander. The Nexari say they won't trust our explanation. Because we're not neutral, they want a human mediator." This was happening everywhere on the station. Species that had coexisted peacefully for decades were suddenly finding reasons to distrust each other. Without humans to serve as neutral arbitrators, every disagreement became a potential diplomatic crisis. The situation was even worse in the outer systems, where pirate activity was spreading like a plague. Fleet Admiral Korksvan of the Vorthak Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying tactical displays that showed attacks happening across a dozen star systems simultaneously. "How many ships have we lost this week?" he asked his operations officer. 17 patrol vessels, sir. Plus 2 cargo convoys and a passenger liner." Korksvan's claws scraped against the metal railing as he gripped it tighter. "Where are our rapid response teams responding to other attacks, sir?" "The pirates seem to know exactly where our ships are at all times. They hit targets when our patrols are furthest away. The Admiral studied the attack patterns, looking for some logic he could understand. The pirates weren't random raiders anymore. They were organized, coordinated, and they seemed to have perfect intelligence about fleet movements. "Sir," his intelligence officer interrupted, "I think I know what's happening. I've been studying the old human patrol reports, and I found something interesting." "What?" The humans weren't just patrolling randomly. They were tracking pirate communications, monitoring their supply lines, and predicting their targets based on cargo schedules and trade route vulnerabilities. They maintained detailed files on every known pirate organization in Council space. Corksman felt his blood go cold. "Are you telling me the humans had intelligence networks that we don't know about?" "Yes, sir. And when they left, they took all that information with them. The Council was flying blind. For decades, they had enjoyed the security that human intelligence networks provided without ever realizing those networks existed. Humans had quietly monitored threats, tracked criminal organizations, and shared information with Council security forces. Now that information flow had stopped, and the pirates were taking advantage of the confusion. On the industrial world of Mechanicus, Factory Director Novara was discovering just how deep the problem went. The automated production line that manufactured starship components had been running smoothly for 8 years under human supervision. The human crew chief, a man named Paul Carter, had submitted regular reports that everything was working normally. Those reports had been lies. Not malicious lies, but the kind of lies that people tell when they don't want to worry their bosses about problems they can handle themselves. Paul and his team had been constantly fixing small problems, making minor adjustments, and preventing larger failures. They had never bothered to report these activities because they considered them part of normal operations. Now the production line was failing in ways that no one understood. "The quantum assemblers are producing components with microscopic flaws," Novara's chief engineer reported. "The flaws are so small that our quality control systems can't detect them, but they cause system failures when the components are installed." In starships, how did the humans prevent this problem? "We don't know. According to their reports, it never was a problem. But I found some personal notes that Paul Carter left behind. He mentioned something called quantum field harmonics and molecular resonance adjustments. None of our engineers know what those terms mean." Novara stared at the notes written in Paul's neat handwriting. The human had been making complex, technical adjustments that prevented problems before they occurred. But he had never documented these procedures because he assumed any qualified engineer would know how to do them. The assumption had been wrong. Similar discoveries were happening across the galaxy. Human workers had been solving problems that other species didn't even know existed. They had been preventing failures, avoiding conflicts, and maintaining systems in ways that seemed so natural and obvious that they never bothered to explain what they were doing. Dr. Ben Clark's abandoned research facility on Titan was the most disturbing example. The human scientist had been working on what he called universal communication protocols. His research notes described systems that could translate not just languages, but cultural contexts, emotional undertones, and species-specific ways of thinking. The Council's linguists had dismissed this research as unnecessary. Translation was a simple matter of converting words from one language to another. Cultural differences could be handled through diplomatic training and mutual respect, but Clark's notes revealed the true complexity of interspecies communication. Humans had been serving as more than translators. They had been serving as cultural interpreters, helping different species understand not just what others were saying, but what they meant by saying it. Without this deeper level of communication, misunderstandings were multiplying. Trade negotiations were failing because species were misinterpreting each other's intentions. Military alliances were straining because allies couldn't understand each other's strategic thinking. Even simple conversations were becoming sources of conflict. The Council's solution was to hire more experts, bring in specialists from every field, and throw resources at the problem until it was solved. Surely the greatest minds in the galaxy could figure out how to replace whatever simple contributions humans had made, But the problems kept getting worse. Production continued to fall. Conflicts continued to increase. Systems continued to fail in ways that no one could predict or prevent. In the depths of space, human ships monitored Council communications with quiet interest. Captain Alex Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the exploration vessel New Horizons, reading intelligence reports that his crew gathered from long-range sensors. The Council is advertising for experienced problem solvers, his communications officer reported. They're offering premium wages for anyone who can restore their industrial output to previous levels. Any takers? A few species have submitted proposals, but nothing's working. 1 year after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council convened the most important emergency session in its 1,000-year history. Representatives from every member species filled the Great Chamber, their faces showing the strain of 12 months of cascading failures. The numbers on the massive display screens told a story that no one wanted to believe. Trade volume down 37%. Industrial output fallen by half. Military effectiveness reduced to levels not seen since the Dark Ages before the Council was formed. And the trend was still accelerating downward. Supreme Counselor Keflin of the Nexari Consortium stood at the center of the chamber, her crystalline body flickering with colors of deep distress. As the Council's senior leader, it fell to her to speak the words that everyone was thinking but no one wanted to say. "We need the humans back," she announced, her musical voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. The admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. For a full minute no one spoke. Then Trade Commissioner Zektar of the Vorthic Empire rose from his seat, his scales dark with shame. "The Kepler mining operation is completely shut down," he reported. "We've tried 17 different approaches to restart production. We've hired the best engineers from 6 different species. We've rebuilt the equipment from scratch using superior Vorthic technology. Nothing works. The humans made it look simple, but we can't figure out how they did it." Economic analyst Tixnara stepped forward, carrying a datapad filled with reports that painted an increasingly desperate picture. "The problem isn't limited to mining," she said. "Every industry that relied on human workers is failing. Food production is down because human agricultural techniques can't be replicated. Transportation is disrupted because human logistics coordinators understood supply chains in ways we don't. Even our entertainment industry is suffering because humans created content that appealed to multiple species simultaneously." Fleet Admiral Krekstar of the Vorthic Defense Force presented the military situation with grim efficiency. "Pirate attacks have increased by 400%. Our response times are 3 times slower than they were under human coordination. We've lost more ships in the past year than in the previous 20 years combined." He activated a holographic display showing attack patterns across Council space. Red markers indicated successful pirate raids, and there were hundreds of them scattered across dozens of star systems. "The humans weren't just patrol commanders," he continued. "They were intelligence analysts, strategic planners, and diplomatic negotiators all rolled into one. They prevented conflicts before they started, negotiated truces with enemy forces, and somehow convinced hostile groups to police themselves. We've tried to replace their methods with standard military doctrine, but it doesn't work. The pirates know we're predictable now." Ambassador Velfara of the Ethereal Collective presented the diplomatic report with the resignation of someone who had tried everything and failed. "Interspecies relations are at their worst point in centuries. Without human mediators, old conflicts are resurging. The Krathan and Sektar are on the verge of war again. The Nexari and Vorthok are having trade disputes that threaten to destroy their economic partnership. Even species that have been allies for generations are finding reasons to distrust each other." She paused, her gaseous form swirling with dark colors. "We've tried to train our own diplomats to fill the human role, but it's impossible. Humans had an intuitive understanding of how different species think and feel. They could find common ground between groups that seem completely incompatible. Without them, every negotiation becomes a potential conflict." The chamber filled with frustrated voices as representatives shared their own stories of failure. production lines that couldn't be restarted, transport routes that no longer functioned efficiently, scientific research projects that had stalled without human insight, computer systems that worked perfectly but somehow produced wrong results when operated by non-human crews. Supreme Counselor Kathleen called for order, her crystalline body flashing bright blue to get everyone's attention. We need to understand exactly what we lost when the humans left. This isn't just about replacing workers. There's something else, something we missed. She activated a massive holographic display that showed economic data from across the galaxy. Look at these numbers. Humans comprised only 8% of the galactic population, but they were involved in 47% of all successful interspecies ventures. They weren't just participants in our economy. They were the foundation that held it together. The display changed to show communication patterns between different species. Before humans left, the lines connecting different worlds were thick and numerous, showing active trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. After humans left, many of those lines had vanished, leaving isolated clusters of species that barely communicated with each other. Humans were bridges, Kathleen continued. They connected species that couldn't connect directly. They translated not just languages, but entire ways of thinking. They made it possible for the rest of us to work together despite our fundamental differences. Dr. Kelvin, the Council's chief scientist, had spent months analyzing human research facilities that had been left behind. His findings were disturbing in their implications. "I've been studying human scientific methods," he reported. Their approach was completely different from ours. We focus on precision, following established procedures, and achieving perfect results. Humans focused on adaptation, creative problem-solving, and finding solutions that worked even when they shouldn't have worked. He showed examples of human engineering that still baffled alien scientists. They built systems that could repair themselves, machines that learned from their mistakes, and networks that improved their own performance. Over time, most importantly, they designed everything to work with other species, not against them. Every human creation was meant to bring different groups together, not to advance human interests alone. The revelation was sobering. Humans hadn't just been workers or soldiers or diplomats. They had been the glue that held galactic civilization together, the universal adapters that made cooperation between incompatible species possible. Security. Chief Thoxener delivered the most troubling news of all. "Our intelligence services have discovered something alarming. The humans didn't just leave. They took critical information with them." He activated a classified display that showed the scope of human intelligence networks. For decades, humans maintained detailed files on criminal organizations, potential terrorist threats, and unstable political situations throughout Council space. They monitored communications, tracked suspicious activities, and prevented dozens of conflicts before they could start. This information was shared freely with Council security forces, but it originated from human sources. The display showed the current state of Council intelligence capabilities. Where once there had been comprehensive coverage of potential threats, now there were huge gaps. Entire sectors of space were dark zones where the Council had no idea what was happening. "The pirates, smugglers, and rebel groups know we're blind now," Thoxener continued. "They're coordinating their activities in ways we've never seen before." Some of our intelligence analysts believe the humans were the only thing keeping these criminal networks from uniting against us. As the reports continued, a pattern emerged that no one wanted to acknowledge. Every major system in Council space had been dependent on human contributions in ways that had been invisible until those contributions disappeared. Humans hadn't been junior partners in galactic civilization. They had been its architects, its engineers, and its guardians. Supreme Counselor Kathleen made the decision that everyone knew was coming. "We need to find them. We need to bring them back. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, we need humanity to return to Council space." The chamber erupted in discussion as representatives debated how to contact a species that had vanished without leaving a forwarding address. Some suggested sending scout ships to search the outer rim. Others proposed broadcasting messages of apology across all known communication channels. A few desperate voices suggested offering humanity full counsel, membership with voting rights equal to the founding species. But as the debate continued, one uncomfortable truth became clear. The council had no idea where humans had gone or how to contact them. They had disappeared as quietly and efficiently as they had done everything else, leaving behind no clues about their destination or their intentions. Somewhere in the dark space beyond the galactic edge, human ships detected the Council's frantic communication attempts. The messages were exactly what they had expected: apologies, pleas for forgiveness, and increasingly desperate offers of partnership. Admiral Kate Sullivan read the latest transmission in her command center aboard the deep space vessel Horizons Edge. The Council was now offering humans complete autonomy, advanced technology sharing, and territorial rights that exceeded what any other species had ever received. "They still don't understand," she said to her staff. "They think this is about better terms or fairer treatment. They think we left because we wanted more." Communications Officer Dan Roberts looked up from his console. "Should we respond, Admiral?" 2 years after the Exodus, Ambassador Velthara stood in what had once been the busiest trade hub in Council space. The massive station orbited the neutral world of Commerce Prime, where representatives from dozens of species had once gathered to conduct business that kept the galaxy running. Now the corridors were mostly empty. Half the docking bays were closed. The restaurants and shops that had served traders from across the galaxy had shut down one by one as customers stopped coming. The dream of galactic unity was dying, and everyone knew it. Velthara walked through the abandoned sections of the station, her gaseous form shifting between colors of sadness and regret. In the old human quarter, she found a small restaurant that a family from Earth had operated for 15 years. The sign above the door still read Murphy's Universal Cafe, all species welcome. Inside, dust covered the tables where humans had served food that somehow appealed to the different tastes of a dozen alien species. The Murphy family had learned to cook Vorthek protein dishes, Nexari crystal supplements, and ethereal energy broths all in the same kitchen. More importantly, they had created a place where natural enemies could sit at neighboring tables and share meals without conflict. Velthara remembered eating here many times, watching Jim Murphy chat easily with Krathan warriors while his wife, Sarah, served tea to nervous Sektar merchants. The humans had made it look so natural, so effortless. They had treated every customer like an old friend, regardless of species, politics, or past conflicts. Now the cafe was empty, like so much else in Council space. The final insult had come 3 days ago, when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures beyond the galactic edge. The readings were unlike anything in Council databases, but the quantum signatures were unmistakably human in origin. Fleet Admiral Corksvan had been the first to see the sensor data, and he still couldn't believe what it revealed. The energy output suggested ships larger than anything the Council had ever built, powered by technology that made their best engines look primitive. How is this possible? He had asked his science officer, a Nexari engineer named Kelser, who specialized in energy systems. "The power levels are beyond our current capabilities," Kelser had replied, his crystalline body flickering with colors of amazement. "To generate this much energy, they would need either fusion cores 10 times more efficient than ours, or an entirely different power source that we don't understand." The implications were staggering. While the Council had dismissed humans as technologically backward, humanity had apparently been developing capabilities that exceeded anything Council science could achieve. The modest patrol ships and simple mining equipment they had left behind were apparently just the tip of an iceberg that reached depths no one had imagined. Supreme Counselor Kethelin sat in her private office, reading reports that painted an increasingly desperate picture. The Council's GDP had fallen by 50%. 3 major trade routes had closed completely. 2 member species were talking about withdrawing from the Council entirely. But the most disturbing report came from the Council's top intelligence analyst, a Vorthek named Sekthara who had spent decades studying galactic security threats. We've discovered something about human intelligence capabilities that changes everything, Sekthara reported during a classified briefing. The humans weren't just gathering information about criminal activities. They were preventing conflicts. Before they started by identifying and resolving problems that could have led to wars, she showed classified data that revealed the true scope of human activities. In the past 50 years, our records show that humans mediated over 3,000 disputes between council species. Most of these disputes never appeared in official reports because humans resolved them before they became serious enough to require formal intervention. Kathleen studied the data with growing horror. Humans had been preventing wars, stopping genocides, and maintaining peace between species that were natural enemies. They had done this work quietly without seeking credit or recognition because they believed it was simply the right thing to do. How many of these conflicts have resurfaced since the humans left? Kathleen asked. 67% of them, Sekthara replied, and the numbers are increasing every month. The Council was facing the possibility of multiple simultaneous wars between species that had coexisted peacefully for decades, without human mediators to resolve disputes and human intelligence networks to identify problems early. Old hatreds were surfacing throughout Council space on the industrial world of Mechanicus. Factory Director Novara was shutting down the last production line in what had once been the galaxy's most advanced manufacturing facility. The automated systems that humans had designed and maintained were finally failing completely, and no amount of alien engineering expertise could keep them running. She walked through the empty factory floor, remembering when this place had hummed with activity. Human workers had operated alongside Vorthic engineers, Nexari technicians, and ethereal specialists, creating products that none of them could have built alone. The humans had somehow made it work, bridging the gaps between species that thought and worked in completely different ways, but the humans had taken more than their technical knowledge when they left. They had taken the spirit of cooperation that had made the factory possible in the first place. The personal message arrived without warning, transmitted on frequencies that the Council hadn't known humans were monitoring. It was brief, delivered in the calm, professional tone that had become humanity's signature style. To the Galactic Council, the message began, spoken by a woman whose voice many recognized as Director Carol Stone, humanity's former diplomatic liaison. The Council is welcome to govern itself as it sees fit. Humanity wishes you success in your future endeavors. That was all. No demands, no negotiations, no offers to return. Just a polite farewell from a species that had apparently moved on to bigger and better things. Supreme Counselor Kathleen convened an emergency session to discuss the message, but there was nothing to discuss. Humanity had made their position clear. They were done with the Council, and they weren't coming back. What do we do now? Asked Trade Commissioner Zektar, his voice showing the strain of 2 years of economic collapse. We survive, Kathleen replied, though she wasn't sure how. The reports from scout ships searching for human colonies were all the same: empty worlds, abandoned facilities, and no trace of where humanity had gone. They had vanished as completely as if they had never existed, leaving behind only the growing realization of what the Council had lost. Dr. Ben Clark's research facility on Titan provided the final piece of the puzzle. Hidden in encrypted files that took months to decode, Council scientists found Clark's true project notes. He hadn't just been working on translation protocols. He had been documenting something much more important: the psychological and cultural patterns that made interspecies cooperation possible. His research revealed that humans possessed a unique combination of traits that made them natural mediators between alien species. They could understand multiple viewpoints simultaneously, find common ground between opposing positions, and create solutions that satisfied everyone involved. Most importantly, they could do this instinctively, without the rigid training and careful preparation that other species required. Humans were the universal adapters, Dr. Kelvin explained to the Emergency Science Committee. They could interface with any species, understand any culture, and bridge any gap between different ways of thinking. They weren't just workers or soldiers or diplomats. They were the biological key that unlocked cooperation between species that should have been incompatible. The irony was crushing. The Council had dismissed humans as primitive and unimportant, not realizing that humanity possessed the one trait that galactic civilization couldn't function without: the ability to bring different species together despite their fundamental differences. Now that trait was gone, and the galaxy was falling apart. In the depths of intergalactic space, Admiral Kate Sullivan received the latest intelligence reports from Council territory. The news was exactly what humanity's leadership had predicted: complete economic and social collapse within 5 years, followed by a probable return to the isolationism and constant warfare that had plagued the galaxy before the Council was formed. The Vorthic Empire is mobilizing their fleet, Intelligence Officer Don Roberts reported. The Nexari Consortium is fortifying their borders. The Ethereal Collective is withdrawing from all joint ventures. Everyone's preparing for war. Kate nodded. The Council had finally learned the price of their arrogance, but the lesson had come too late. Some mistakes couldn't be undone with apologies or better offers. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. Humanity had found something better. Beyond the galactic edge, a community of species that valued cooperation over domination, wisdom over pride, and unity over superiority. They had left the Council to its fate and moved on to build something new. The galaxy would survive, eventually. The various species would adapt to life without human mediation, though it would take generations and cost millions of lives. Some would learn to cooperate on their own. Others would retreat into isolation.